One. Test. 1 1 1 1 1 2 2.
Mazel tov. Sure, why not? One of those people that like I never wrap anything or just put.
We have kindred spirits.
Oh, so cute. Little man shirt.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Which is like, you know, everyone tells me where my. That's true. He's proving to be very long. Like his arms and his legs, he's like a.
Shabbat shalom there, Mother.
Shabbat shalom. What?
We can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Huh, hold on.
So how old is he now? 8 weeks this past Wednesday. Oh, no. 10, 20, 21. Is he one of them? On and off. It's like I teach Monday, Tuesday, and then the rest of the week.
Okay, try it now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Say something.
You hear me? Yes?
I can hear you, but
Okay.
not over the speaker.
Oh,
So-
okay, mine's turned on, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I can hear you. You're fine.
I need to know which Shabbat service you're at because my book is different. Like, is it the first or second one?
I think it's the first
First?
one.
Okay.
It's either like page 186 or page 86.
186 maybe. Okay.
This is super cute. It's so funny. I have all these like cousin who gave me a bunch of clothes from their son, and it's like there's so much tags on it. There's like so much stuff. Yeah, get my one in clothes, which is great. Like, you know, clients of mine from.
That's on. Me too.
What? So he's pretty good. I am speaking, but there's some. Yeah, so I should not hurt now. Yeah. Yeah, I've done transfers on the tables there, so. For those county facilities, so. Yeah, I've heard there's quite a few numbers. So, let's see.
Try talking.
Hi, are you getting snow today? No?
No.
Toronto was, they talked about the traffic.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I'm not sure why we're not getting the participants over the speakers, but we don't really need that today, so we'll skip it. So if you need something during the service, those of you joining us on Zoom, please just send something in the chat and I will be able to probably see it there. Because I can't have the speaker on for whatever reason. So, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome, whether you're joining us via YouTube or Zoom or here in person. This wonderful Shabbat morning. And we'll begin on page 68. Moda ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam shechezarta binishmati bechemla rabba emunatecha. Following page, Hine matov, how wonderful it is for us to be together. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. And on page 74, join in Matovu, how beautiful it is, your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. And this is the week in which we say goodbye to Jacob in our Parsha. And we continue to invoke Jacob's name throughout the history of the Jewish people, actually, as Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, the children of Jacob, Israel being his changed name. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. We turn together to page 76 and join in our blessing that thanks God for the wondrous creations of our bodies Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah, ubaravo nekavim nekavim chalulim chalulim, galui v'yadua lifnei chisei chavodecha, she'im yifatech echad mehem, o yisatem echad mehem, אי אפשר להתקיים לעמוד לפניך, ברוך אתה אדוני רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Baruch atah Adonai rofeh chol basar umafli la'asot. And on page 78, the blessing for our souls. Elohai neshama shenatata bi torahi. Ata vrata, ata yitzarta, ata nafachta bi. Va'ata mishamra b'kirbi. Kol zman neshama b'kirbi. Modeh ani lefanecha, Adonai Elohei v'Elohei avotai v'imotai, Ribon kol hama'asim, Adon kol haneshamot, Baruch ata Adonai asher biyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol b'sar ish. Matter is never destroyed, only transformed. So too can the soul evolve higher and higher, from insect to inspiration, from haughtiness to holiness, selfishness to service, from individualism to union, to join with the soul of souls, the infinite one. As the soul is magnified and sanctified, so is the infinite one exalted. Baruch atah Adonai asher biyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol b'sar ish. We join in our blessings that thank God for our daily experience, and Pam will help us. We'll join responsibly.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan laset v'vina l'chavhin ben yom u'ben laila.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten li'av koach.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama avir shenai me'enai utnu me'afapai.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani b'tselem Elohim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani balkorim.
Could you go get the floor?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani Yisrael.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Ozir Yisrael bigvura.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara.
Amen.
And we join together in our blessing for study and for worship. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Adonai, our God, let the words of your Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of your people Israel may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Baruch atah Adonai, hamlamed Torah la'amo Yisrael. Page 88. Elu divarim she'en lehem shi'ur, she'adam ochel parotehem b'olam hazeh v'hakeren kayemet lo le'olam haba. On the next page, let's join together in the middle. There are 8 degrees of the giving tzedakah, each one higher than the one before. To give grudgingly, reluctantly, or with regret. To give less than one should, but with grace. To give what one should, but only after being asked. To give before one is asked. To give without knowing who will receive it, although the recipient knows the identity of the giver. To give without making known one's identity. To give so that neither the giver nor receiver knows the identity of the other. To help another to become self-supporting by means of a gift, a loan, or by finding employment for one in need. We turn together to page 94. Baruch Shamar V'haya Haolam Baruch Hu. Blessed is the one who spoke, and the world came to be. Blessed is the one. Let's join together. Blessed is the one who continually authors creation. Blessed is the one whose word is deed. Blessed is the one who decrees and fulfills. Blessed is the one who is compassionate towards the world. Blessed is the one who is compassionate towards all creatures. Blessed is the one who rewards the reverent. Blessed is the one who exists for all time, ever enduring. Blessed is the one who redeems and saves. Blessed is God's name. With songs of praise we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe. One God, life of the universe, praised and glorious ruler, your name is eternal. Baruch atah Adonai melech mechulal batishbachot. Page 96. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot laAdonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, lezamer l'shimcha elyon, lahagid baboker chasecha, ve'emunatcha balelot, Alei Asur ve'alei Navel Alei Higayon Bechino Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat Tov lehodot laAdonai Ulezamer l'shimcha elyon Lezamer l'shimcha elyon. We turn to page 106. Oh, we're going to do Ashrei, yes.
Ashrei Yoshvei.
Hold on, Ashrei is on page 97.
Oh, sorry. I'm a little eager, I guess.
Yes, I know. You're Ashrei eager.
Ashrei Yoshvei Vetecha, Od Yehalalucha Selah. Ashrei Ha'am Shechakalo, Ashrei Ha'am Shadonai Elohav.
Tila David, Arumimcha Elohai HaMelech, Vavracha Shimcha Leolam Vaed.
Oh, wait a minute. I think we're off.
Well, you did too.
I did too. All right. But I don't know the opposite ones. I don't know them as well. You do Bechol.
Okay. B'chol yom avarchecha, v'halala shimcha leolam vaed.
Gadol Adonai Umhula Me'od, Ve'ligdula Tod Ein Chekir.
Dor ledor yishbach masecha, v'chasidecha yevarchucha.
Hadar Kavod Hodecha, V'divrei Niflatecha Asicha.
Ve'zuz notecha yameru, ugdlatcha asaprena.
Zecher Rav Tuvcha Yabi'u, V'sitkatcha Yeranenu.
Chanun v'rachum Adonai erech hapayim gedol chesed.
Tov Adonai Lakol, V'rachamav Akol Ma'asav.
Yaduch Adonai kol maasecha, v'chasidecha yevarchucha.
Kavod Malkuto Yameru, Ugvurata Yadeberu.
להודיע לידי אדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
עיני כל אליך יסברו, ואתה נותן להם את אטלם בעיתו.
פותח את ידיך, ומשביח לכל חיי רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסדית בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קורב, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבעתם ישמע ויושיען.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהב, ואת כל ראשים ישמיד.
תהילה אדוני ידבר פי, ויברכו בשר שם קדושה לעולם ועד.
ואנחנו נברך מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah. On the following page, Psalm of Praise, Psalm 150. Hallelujah, 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 El Bikodsho, hallelujah, hallelujah, Brakia Uzo. Hallelujah, 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 bigvurotav, hallelujah, hallelujah, kerov gudlo. Hallelujah, 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 beteka shofar, hallelujah, hallelujah, benevel bechinor. Hallelujah, 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 betof umachol. Hallelujah, hallelujah, beminim v'ugav. Hallelujah, 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 betzil tzalei shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, betzil tzalei truah. Kol hanshamate hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Page 105. Yishtabach shimcha le'ahad malkeinu. You shall always be praised, great and holy God, our sovereign in heaven and on earth. Songs of praise and psalms of adoration become you, acknowledging your might and your dominion. Yours are strength and sovereignty, sanctity, grandeur, and glory always. We offer our devotion, open our hearts in acclamation. Baruch atah Adonai el melech gadol batishbachot, el hahodaot adon haniflaot, habocher b'shirei zimra, melech el chei ha'olamim. We rise together for Chatzi Kaddish, page 106.
Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabba,
Amen.
v'yama divra chirute, v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon uvyomechon, uvchayedecho beYisrael, bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv, v'maru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach, Le'alam ulame amaya. Yitbarak, Yitbarak, V'yishtabak, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, V'yitalel, V'yithalal, Shemei Kedusha,
Barechu.
Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata,
Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran b'yama.
Bimaru. Amen.
Amen.
We continue standing for the call to worship, the Baruch Hu on page 108. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Please be seated as we join together with Yotzer Or on page 110. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer Or uvorei choshech, Osei shalom uvorei et hakol. Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha brachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, Malah haaretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita yifa'arucha sela. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkeh chulanu mehera le'or'o, Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot. Page 113. Once or twice in a lifetime, a man or woman may choose a radical leaving, having heard Lech Lecha, go forth. God disturbs us toward our destiny by hard and difficult events and by freedom's now urgent voice, which explode and confirm who we are. We don't like leaving, but God loves becoming. Baruch atah Adonai habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava. We rise together for Shema, page 114.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated as we continue with the Ahavta.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha u'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'adecha v'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anachi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibartam bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvleftecha v'aderech u'shofbecha uvkumecha ukshatam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu latatafot b'neinecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha Laman tizkaru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem be'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the last full measure of selfless devotion, we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives and we can begin to change the world. And then you live in our hearts and we, through righteousness, behold your presence. Page 121. Emet v'yatziv. The eternal truth is that you alone are God and there is none else. May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exult in your justice. Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war anymore. You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart. The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor? Asks God.
We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy.
Praise to God Most High.
Blessed is God and deserving of blessing.
As we join in our Song of Freedom, Mi Chamocha, page 122.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Norah tehilot. Oh, Sefele. Oh, Sefele.
שירה חדשה שיפכו גלים לשמך על שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Together. Sor Yisrael, Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael, Ufdechenu Mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael, Go Aleinu, Adonai Zvaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open our lips, that our mouths may declare your praise. Please rise. 126.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Gula Lifnei V'Nehem, L'ma'an Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah Rab LeHoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Marit HaGashem, Mechalchel Chayim B'Chesed, Mechaye HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim. So make no flame B'Refei Cholim, U'Matir Asurim, Umekayem emunato l'shenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot umidom elach melech meimit umechayeh umatzmiya Yeshua v'ne'eman ata l'chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaKol. Nekadesh et Shemcha ba'olam. Kashem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom. Kakatuv ayad neviecha. V'karazel zer ve'amar. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch Kol Haaretz Kivodo. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonai, Ma'adir Shimcha b'chol ha'aretz. Baruch kivod Adonai mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu. Hu Avinu hu Malkeinu. Hu Moshienu v'hu Yashmienu. B'rahamav le'nei chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Yimlok Adonai leolam. Elochai Yiksion. Ledor vador. Hallelujah. Ledor vador nagid gad lecha. El netza netzachim kedishata nagdish. B'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated, and we turn together to page 132, and we'll join in B'Shamra.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. La'asot et ha-Shabbat l'Torah b'rit olam. B'nei uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam oti le'olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. La'asot et ha-Shabbat l'Torah b'rit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'Torah b'rit olam. Uvarei hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'Torah b'rit olam.
Page 135. Let's join together, top of the page. We offer thanks, O God, for this Shabbat, which unites us in faith and hope, for Shabbat holiness, which inspires sacred living, for Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness, for Shabbat peace born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing, O God. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion, restored, in all lands. You are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. Page 139. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations.
Modim anachnu lach.
For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons.
Modim anachnu lach.
For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements.
Modim anachnu lach.
For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness, transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression.
Modim anachnu lach.
For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared,
Modim anachnu lach.
for all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom,
Modim anachnu lach.
for human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose.
Modim anachnu lach.
We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. Page 140, a prayer for peace. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha. Sim,
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 sim, shalom, sim,
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 sim.
sim, shalom, tova uveracha. We take a few moments for silent prayer.
Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, imru, amen.
Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom,
Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael,
Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. We turn our thoughts to those who need a blessing of healing, all those who continue to struggle with COVID-19, their friends and family and caregivers. For those who struggle for healing of various different varieties, healing of body, of mind, of heart, of spirit. In our congregation, we especially mention Greg Bennett and Michael Byron, Scott Gordon, Rebecca Gottlieb, Phyllis Levin, Jacob Adams, Pat Hanna, Irina Shevitskaya, Doug Ford, Dane Marcinowski, Vyacheslav Aliev, Zachary Jackson, Bruce Harrell, Andrea Kempner Blake, the Rodland family, Terry Harris, Frank Fusaro, Edna Fritz, Frank DeFazio, Katie Elia, Bonita Matti, Matea Press, Joe Riley, Joseph Pasetner, Edie Francis, Jim McCann, Sheila Cohn, Marilyn Weinecke, Diane Levy, Jeannie Neibauer, and Phyllis Solomon. If you are joining us via live stream, you would like to add names, please do so in the chat box. If you are here in person and would like to add a name, please do so as I look around. Ooh, excuse me. We join together in our prayer for healing, page 253. Sorry?
I go favorite.
Please. Well, then we'll do a terrible duet.
Misheberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mikor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Well, Shabbat Shalom. We are Parshat Vayechi, which is page 306 of the Plout, if you happen to have that with you, which really is, as most Parshiot, when you know, they begin with Vayechi, or this is the life, or this is when so-and-so lived. You know somebody's going to die, right? That's the code word. It's the code word for, okay, wrap up, time to go. And in fact, this is exactly what we have within the next chapter here. We have the death of Jacob, and then the following week, next week, we'll have the death of Joseph as we wrap up the very last of the book of Genesis. And so it begins, that Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt, and he lives there for 17 years. And he was 147 years old when the time came for him to die. And as was sort of the custom, and I think still is the custom, really, when possible, you gather together the family at the very end. And there is a moment in which you can say your goodbyes. If you're extraordinarily lucky, those moments are filled with love and tenderness, and you're able to have some resolution as the person that you are caring for and loving moves on to whatever comes in the next world. Having had the opportunity to be there at this moment for many people, the story that is relayed here at Jacob's deathbed is significantly different than that loving, tender moment. In fact, Jacob takes this opportunity to call out the foibles and failings of his children. He is not kind. He is not pleasant. He is direct and quite caustic about the whole thing. He said, I'm about to die. Reuben, you're my firstborn, the strength of the first fruit of my vigor. And all you do is you're excessive in exalting yourself. And the only thing you want is strength. You're a licentious one. You boil up like water. And then it goes on and on and on and on and on throughout the whole text. And we talked yesterday about why and all that. And why does Jacob choose this moment? And it's public, right? I mean, it's in front of everybody. It's not just a private moment between him and whatever son he is sort of telling. It's not a moment where a father says, look, son, I have to tell you. Nobody else is going to say this to you, but here it is. But this is a public moment, right? This is a public moment of formal goodbye. And yet Jacob turns it into this kind of lesson of telling them all the bad things that they are and have done. And yet, at the very end, there is a resolution of deception. in which Jacob designates the younger of Joseph's two sons as the future leader, throwing aside three generations of deceptive practice, and now putting things out there and in the open. And then Jacob dies in this very sort of peaceful way. He says what he has to say. He crawls into bed, pulls his knees to his chest, and dies. Not an entirely bad way to go at 147. Right? Having said your bit, right? Having said all there was that needed to be said, Jacob gives in. And then what is interesting is what happens afterwards. So this is page 314. Joseph throws himself on his father and he weeps over him and he kisses him. And Joseph then charged his servants and the physicians to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. When his 40 days were completed, for it took the embalmers that many days, Egypt bewailed him 70 days. What's going on here? Yes. Right? He extracts the promise from his children after his blessings that they will make sure that he is buried in the cave of Machpelah, the ancestral burial cave of his two previous generations. And then he dies. And Joseph employs these Egyptian practices. What's happening? Absolutely. They're following, at least Joseph is following Egyptian custom. Right? I think this is part of the proof texts for the idea that Joseph is no longer fully part of the Israelite community, that he really doesn't see himself fully part of the Israelites. So he sends his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, to be blessed by his father. He himself does not get blessed. He says to his dad, look here, bless them. I can't accept this. Now, I've taken on an Egyptian name. I have essentially become secular, assimilated into Egyptian life. This is who I am, and I need to remain that way in order to function in my role. And when it comes time, Joseph wants to express his sense of grief, and he does it in an Egyptian way. And then you have this whole 70 days of mourning that the Egyptians mourn him.
Yeah, that's interesting. What's fun is to read some of the Orthodox commentary how they do somersaults and spin backwards to show that Jacob was an Orthodox burial. It wasn't really involved, and it was all done according to kosher principles.
Right, that embalming really meant the tahara, that it doesn't mean embalming, yeah. Right, because something like that is incongruous with current Jewish tradition. And whenever the text comes into conflict with what we do currently, that creates enormous discord. Because there is this kind of sort of mythology within the very traditional movements that everything we do comes directly from Sinai, and that even though this is pre-Sinai, they of course knew what it was. So Abraham, of course, was observant of kashrut, even though kashrut doesn't exist for how many hundreds of years later, right? I mean, all of that all of those kinds of things, and the rabbis go through what we call halachic gymnastics to get themselves to a place where they can reconcile these two, right? But I don't think I think it's a much more compelling conversation when you say, okay, so let's take a look at Joseph and who he was and the struggles he was having and his desire, his what's motivating him to mourn his father in a way that he can mourn, right? In a way that it's meaningful to him. And mourning practices are difficult for lots and lots of people. You know, having walked this path with many families through the years, I think the common theme is they want to make sure they get it right. So I remember years ago, there was an older woman in her late 90s passed away, and she was the only Jewish person in this entire very, very large extended family. And I think they had 10 kids and 50 grandchildren, and it was just enormous. And they were all bound and determined to make sure that they were going to give grandma the send-off that she deserved. And if it was a Jewish funeral, they were going to do it right. Because there is this fear. So anyway, there we go. We have a couple of people joining us for study, which will begin in just a few minutes. But for now, let's turn together to Aleinu on page 282. Please rise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzeher b'reishit, shelo asanu kol goyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegohor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Ushemo echad. Please be seated as we turn together to page 294. As our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and of death. So we're in the period of Shloshim, where David Rothman, Vivian Posek, and Fran Porras. And we observed the following yahrzeits on this Shabbat: Rita Gilman, Tilly Oster, Joseph D. Roy, Edward Baker, Rose Strauss, Esther Wolf, Darwin Luntz, Joseph Kramer, Benjamin Kramer, Theodore Landsberg, Pauline Kasselman, Benjamin Kramer, Friedrich Baum, Rebecca Michael, James L. Schuster, Shirley Kullback, Louis Pollack, Benjamin Immerman, Bertha Cohn, Hyman Parker, Catherine Weiss, Emma Kahn, Miriam Cohen, Abraham Cooper, Millie Meyer, Michael Lipsitz, and Barbara Hanauer. If you are in the period of mourning or here for names mentioned, we invite you to rise first. And we rise together as a congregation with love and support. We turn to the words of Kaddish on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ba'alma divrach rutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon v'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran v'elma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'el kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom bimrumav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'el kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Shabbat shalom, everybody. We have a few announcements. Actually, really, the only real announcement is that there are no Saturday morning services for next week or the week after, so the 25th or the 1st. And that the Friday night services for the next 2 weeks are Zoom only. So we are Zoom only for the 24th and the 31st, and then no Saturday morning, the 25th or 1st. And we'll resume then on the 8th with Saturday morning and the 7th with Friday night. Okay, give us a few minutes. We're going to reset over into the library and we'll begin our study. Yeah.
For the flow of the more Scottish.
Yes, I responded.
Okay.
I don't like the idea of having to stand all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it just causes it's too long for people to stand if you read 25 or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah. But otherwise, I think it's fine.
We're just wrapping things.
Well, I think I remember a lot of baby showers, but I think they were on the door. It's actually better. I said, you're not.
Yeah, no, so that's a good idea, actually. Yeah, his dresser was actually an old dresser that I had, that is, built in P42, it's maple. And then when it was like, it was a dresser that I picked up when I moved back, so I didn't have a lot of room in my steam apartment for nursing. I found like this nice recommendations. I just moved over that.
Okay, can you hear me there?
Yeah,
Okay, can somebody try talking?
okay. It's a nice service. Thank you. You hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, try it now, please.
Oh,
I
Yes.
just talk.
Okay, good. Perfect.
can't see you though.
Well, thank God for small wonders. Well, that's interesting. There we go. All right. How's everybody this morning? Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Luba, that's the best hair yet. Very
Yeah.
nice.
It is in memory of Noah and God's promise
Ah, yes,
not to kill.
the rainbow.
We are Joshua chapter 10, I think. Yes?
I thought we were finished with 10.
No, I think we did 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did 9. Let me see. I'll find the text for everybody in case you need it.
No, we just finished services.
Here we go. Boom. Okay. So there you have the text. If you want it in Safari Other, that's there. So, okay. So we pick up chapter 10. You know, the entire book of Joshua is in real time, right? There are no, you know, there's none of this 40 years later jump or several years later or, you know, generation jumping or whatever. It's a consistent timeline story of the early conquest of the Israelites over the land of Israel, right? So here you have, I mean, in the previous chapter, we had a general story of some of the kings who were very worried about these Israelites moving through. We now get specific here. And it's interesting in terms of the names. You know, the name of this king is Adonai Tzedek, who is the king of Jerusalem. Now, what is the word Adonai? What do the words Adonai Tzedek mean? Yeah.
Word of
Right. So the Lord ruler of Tzedek, justice, righteousness, that kind of thing, of Jerusalem. Right. Learned that Joshua had captured Ai and prescribed it, treating Ai and its kings as he had treated Jericho and its kings, and that, moreover, the king of the people of Gibeon had come to terms with Israel and remained among them. So now he's talking about there have been 2 major conquests. There has been Jericho and Ai, and the Gibeonites have essentially signed a treaty.
And that's the ones that became the woodcutters because of their little shenanigans last week.
Yes,
I forgot they were given us.
I believe they were the Gibeonites. Okay, go back.
Guys at the table, could you speak louder because there is no microphone and it is hard to hear you.
Or just repeat the question that Pam said.
Yeah, the Pam said, are the Gibeonites the same people we had last week, who were then designated as the water bearers and the choppers of wood? And I was just looking, and yes, they are. That's the same folks, right? So we've had stories of military conquest of Jericho, and then you have the conquest of the Gibeonites, which has been a treaty conquest, but a conquest nevertheless, right? Because you've got them now being these, water carriers, basically. So that's not exactly an exalted position. And so now you have Adonai Tzedek, who is the king of Jerusalem, which is obviously a play on words. Clearly they're using Hebrew terms, first of all, right? So suddenly we shift from Ai and Jericho, which are unknowns, to now using very intentional Hebrew words, right? So Adonai Tzedek, is a very probably reflective of of what we think Jerusalem was, right? We want to think that Jerusalem was this exalted place even before we got there, right? Jerusalem is said to be, the Temple Mount is said to be the place where God, began the creation of the earth, and all of these other, where Abraham sacrificed Isaac, and all of these other events happen at this kind of epicenter of experience in life in the world, and so this is where it is. And so, to be king of Jerusalem is a big deal. So we know that, or he knows that Joshua has captured Ai and has forced the Gibeonites into this treaty, and he was very afraid. For Gibeon was a large city, like one of the royal cities. In fact, larger than Ai, and all of its men were warriors. So it wasn't as if Gibeon wasn't able to defend itself. It could have. It had the military resources to defend itself, but they were so overwhelmed by the strength of Israel that they chose to just collapse. So King Adonai Tzedek of Jerusalem sent this message to King Cholom of Hebron. Well, sorry, King of Hoham. Yeah, Hoham. Which that really doesn't have much of a meaning, at least identifiably right away. And King of Piram of Yarmut, and the King of Yafia of Lachish, and the King of Abir of Eglon. So he's sending his, notes to all of his buddies, basically, his contemporaries, saying, okay, let's join together. If we band together and create an alliance against these Israelites, we can defeat them, right? Come up and help me defeat Gibeon, for it has come to terms with Joshua and the Israelites. Okay, so here we go. We're going to create this alliance, if you will, and we're going to beat these Israelites back. The 5 Amorite kings, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Yarmut, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon, with their armies, joined forces and marched on Gibeon, and encamped against it and attacked it. What is he doing here? What are they doing? Well, first of all, who are they attacking?
Well,
Israel.
Their former friends, I would imagine, or alliance or a different tribe.
Yeah. They're attacking the ones who created the treaty with the Israelites. They're not attacking the Israelites.
right.
Right? Why not attack the Israelites? Why attack the Gibeonites?
Easier target.
Okay.
What would be the purpose of attacking the Gibeonites?
Well, strategically, it could be punishment, right? It could have been, look, you signed this treaty with the Israelites. Here's what happens to you if you sign treaties with Israelites.
The friend of my enemy is my enemy.
Yes. Right. So the friend of my enemy is what Craig was saying. For sure. So it's possible. We don't really know. But there's a very clear strategic choice that's been made here.
Mhm.
Right? They could have easily said, and the 5 armies and whatever, and attack the Israelite encampment. The text didn't need to say that it attacked the Gibeonites, except that there's a reason for it. Right? So how do the people of Gibeon respond? Well, the people of Gibeon thereupon sent this message to Joshua in the camp of Gilgal. Okay, so the Gibeonites are suffering this kind of attack, and they send a message out to Joshua, and they say,
Help.
right.
Don't forget it.
But not only do they say help, they really say, you owe us. Right? Don't fail your servants. In other words, we have a relationship here. You have a responsibility here. Come up quickly and aid us and deliver us, for the Amorite kings of the hill country have gathered against us. Right? This is a test. This is a test of the relationship. Right? The Gibeonites signed on to this for protection. And now they're saying, okay, protect us. So what does Joshua do? So Joshua marched up from Gilgal with his whole fighting force, all the trained warriors. So Joshua goes in response. Right? Then God speaks to Joshua. Another, this is kind of this is turning out to be God's typical pregame pep talk. Right? This is what happens, just before Joshua goes out to war, God gives him a little pep talk. You'll be fine. It'll be great. This is the routine. The Lord said to Joshua, don't be afraid of them, for I will deliver them into your hands. Not one of them shall withstand you. Right? So this is, you don't have anything to worry about. I got it. I got your back. Here we go. And Joshua took them by surprise, marching all night from Gilgal. The Lord threw them into a panic before Israel. Joshua inflicted a crushing defeat on them at Gibeon, pursued them in the direction of Beit Horon, the Beit Horon ascent, which I don't really know what that is, but okay, and harried them all the way to Azekah, maybe, and Makedah, which we also don't know where those are. While they were fleeing before Israel down the descent from Beit Horon, the Lord hurled huge stones on them from the sky.
That's a new one. That's a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new trick.
Yeah,
And all I have in my head is the Roadrunner.
exactly. Me too. Yeah. Don't pass any windows that have a safe hanging outside. No TNT cigars. Yeah.
right? I mean, that's all I have in my head.
Mine too.
I don't, and God's throwing these rocks on them all the way. So you can imagine this whole group of people that are dodging these rocks as they go, right? All the way, and they perished. More perished from the hailing stones than were killed by the Israelite weapons. Now, if you had to come up with a natural sort of explanation for all of this,
Volcano.
Landslide.
Or
volcano, landslide,
Earthquake. Yeah.
earthquake, falling rocks, collapsing, whatever, right? That, something went down, right? And possibly, that's how you get this retrojected text. You have this story of, Joshua goes up to fight them, and all of a sudden there's these rocks falling on this other army, and suddenly Joshua is the big winner. Well, of course, God threw the rocks on. On that occasion, when God routed the Amorites before the Israelites, Joshua addressed the Lord. He said in the presence of the Israelites, "Stand still, O sun at Gibeon, O moon in the valley of Ayalon." And the sun stood still and the moon halted while a nation wreaked judgment on its foes. As it is written in the book of Yashar, which means kind of truth or strength or straightness. Thus the sun halted in mid-heaven and did not press on to set for a whole day. For the Lord fought for Israel, neither before nor since has there ever been such a day when the Lord acted on words spoken by man. Then Joshua, together with all Israel, returned to the camp at Gilgal.
Is there a book of Yashar?
No.
How about the phrasing of it? Does that show up in the Torah as well? It looks like a little bit of poetry put in there,
It's a song.
or a song. It starts with,
It's absolutely song or poetry. It's prose. It's certainly prose for sure.
Can we hear you sing it?
no,
Yeah. But it's in that classic biblical poetry parallelism, right?
Mhm.
So stand still, the son of Gibeon. The moon of the valley of Ayalon, right? Those are kind of parallel phrases, right? The sun stood still, the moon halted, right? So you have, the first and third lines connect, and the second and fourth lines connect.
I wonder if there was a natural phenomenon like I don't know. An
Yes.
eclipse or I have no idea.
Eclipse.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, look, any of this could have been as a result of national phenomena, and we are now, reading it as divine experience, right? But let's for a moment now go on the other side of the conversation and say, okay, let's assume this is God's intervention, right? Let's take the text for what it says. God caused this to happen. Huh? Why?
Because he promised that he gonna give back the land to Israelites, and he fight and helping them against those who stay in the way. But it is still conflicting that he personally destroying enemies. If he told you can do whatever you want, but you have circumstances that after that you're going to be responsible for that. But now he personally destroying again people. So it is some conflict in this situation.
What's the conflict?
That he promised to Noah not to destroy people, And here he
No.
destroyed.
No. He promised Noah not to cause full-scale earth destruction of the entire, kind of experience of people, is
But
what he
still-
promises Noah. He doesn't promise Noah never to inflict a selected punishment on a group of people.
Still, it feels like he destroying people,
Yes.
even enemies, even enemies to destroy. It feels not right. It is for me is
Well,
better.
sure, but we're reading it as 21st century fairly liberal folk who don't believe that you should really solve your issues and problems through violence, and you could be nice to everybody and all that. But the biblical text reads God very differently, right?
To me-
I mean, God punishes with capital punishment all over the place, right? I mean, you have it with Sodom and Gomorrah. You have it with the golden calf. You have it with Korach. You have it with Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu, who so on over and over again.
I know.
God is not necessarily always kind and benevolent.
Okay.
If you really look at history, you could say that the bubonic plague, the black plague, the Spanish flu, all of those could have also been,
COVID-19.
Yes. But seriously, if you really look at it, going back to Sodom, Gomorrah, Noah, every couple hundred years, God wipes out a huge part of the population. So when you look at it, Luba, through world history, there's always been some kind of plague that wipes out a significant number of the population. We start all over again. And we're living through part of that right now. And it's kind of uncanny.
I agree absolutely with you, but it is raised question in my head, in my personal head, because I had this dream long time ago that it is not actually God doing, but those who was put to watch over the people. After God create people, somebody was put watch over the people, and they actually destroy, not God.
Yeah. To me, the passage, I'm getting back to the question, why is this passage here? To me, it is saying that treaties matter, that the treaty that Joshua had with Gibeon, and it matters, and he stood by it.
That's a good explanation.
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece of importance here, is that the treaty that was enacted between the Israelites and the Gibeonites holds tight, and that Joshua doesn't respond in this mediocre sort of half-hearted kind of, okay, fine, I'll come and help you, and he sends 3 guys with a stick. No, he sends the whole group.
Go big or go home.
Go big or go home, right? He is on it. He is honoring this treaty.
Verse 14 reminds me when it says, neither before nor since has there been such a day when word acted on word spoken by a man. Joshua talks about the sun and the moon. It reminds me of the moment where Moses is like, you want water? I'll give you water. It's like Moses, it's Joshua's walk with the water moment.
Yeah, a little bit. Where who's being seen as doing the miracles here? Right?
Yeah.
Right. Joshua is cutting a very thin line. Joshua is almost getting to the point where he's saying, I'm stopping the sun and the moon. Now, as a person, if you can stop the sun and the moon, that's a good trick. You got power. You got power.
Doesn't one of the prophets do that also? I can't remember which one.
So Craig is asking if the prophets do that. I'm not sure.
There was one. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a good Google question. sometimes I really envy some of my Christian colleagues who can spout chapter and verse.
I hate that. Drives me crazy.
Yeah, it's just, well, in so-and-so 42:19 and 27:3 and we're much more, in Jewish life especially, we're sort of much more in the Tevye mode, right? The good book says. And where in the good book? I don't know, but somewhere it says something about that.
The New Testament is much smaller. We have a lot more to work with. That's our problem.
Well, I mean, yeah, for sure, because not only do we have the biblical text, but we have, 72 volumes of Talmud to deal with.
Right.
So that, and it's a whole other ballgame. But
Isaiah.
Isaiah.
They made the sun go backwards.
Okay.
They make it stand still, made it go in the other direction. Yeah.
Right.
And that thing about the withholding or standing up to the treaty too, if you read ahead, Saul violates the treaty and Israel was punished because of that. Later on.
Right. So did everybody hear what Craig was saying?
No.
No. So apparently later on in the text, we have an opportunity where Saul actually violates a treaty and there's significant punishment that's inflicted because of it. So treaties are held, as an oath, right? I mean, earlier on, we had this whole concept a few chapters back about, not being able to get out of the treaty because the treaty was actually an oath sworn to God. So even though the people there, were a problem, or their actions were a problem, the treaty itself had to be upheld because the treaty was sworn as an oath to God, which makes it very difficult to just obviate. You can't just call it off. You're obligated. So there's Joel.
Hey.
There's Joel.
Toss my bread.
Okay.
There we go. Hello, Joel. Shabbat shalom. You're muted, but that's okay. You're on mute, Joel.
Too much stuff going on.
It's okay.
Yep.
It's good. It's good to be busy.
Yeah, sometimes.
So we took a vote, and you're making breakfast for us the first time we come back in January.
With my tremors, you're going to have a lot of broken eggs.
Scrambled eggs is good.
Yeah. We used to have the men's club when I first came to Erie, which was a blast. So.
Well, when we finally can get together, I would love to start doing breakfasts and something together anyway. That would be nice. So, but I have a feeling that from all indications, we're heading into a winter of discontent.
Mhm.
So hunker down, folks.
See, New York, 50,000 cases, positive cases in one day.
Someone was saying that when he first came to Erie, there was a men's club that they all got together.
Eric, were you around then?
For the Mets Club,
Yeah,
I should have been.
Yeah.
early 80s.
No, late 80s is
No,
when I showed up. Yeah.
no, it was early 80s.
Yeah. Well, let's see if you can get them a decent manager. Okay.
So my father-in-law was the executive director of a very large synagogue in Toronto. And for years, there was Mr. Cohen. I forgot what his name was, but anyway, let's say Mr. Cohen was the guy in charge of the liquor cabinet for the men's club. And he would have in his head what everybody owed. So every so often he would come to tell you, you owe us a little bit for the liquor cabinet, right? So they would have on Saturday mornings while the rabbi was speaking, they would go and have a l'chaim drink. Don't ask. Right? It's just a bizarre whatever. Yes, we can do that. In fact, we'll do that instead of having the rabbi speak.
They get Shlivovitz.
Asked to go back for a shot of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty typical
Yeah.
tradition. Anyway, so it
No,
turns
I'm
out
amazed. I stepped out for 2 minutes. We were talking about Gibeonites, and now here are we.
you never know.
We digress.
Right. So lo and behold, 98-year-old Mr. Cohen with the liquor cabinet key and all of the accounts in his head dies. Right. And now there's like congregational crisis. Because they're arguing about, no, I don't know this, and I don't have that, and we don't have this, blah, blah, blah. And that essentially ended the men's club.
Couldn't just appoint someone else.
So sometimes these things have, a ridiculous sort of experience, but I would be happy to do Scotch tasting.
Shlivovitz.
Not if I can avoid it.
Oh.
During the sermon, before or after?
But if it's Shlivovitz, it's got to be before, because it might make them better. I don't know. Did you ever watch MASH? And where one episode where they get the priest drunk just before he has to give this big sermon, and he totally flubs it up. Yeah, that's like my worst nightmare. So anyway, okay. So
Yeah, I could quote that one.
right, that's awesome. Okay, so Joshua. So verse 16 here. Meanwhile, those 5 kings fled and hid in a cave of Makkedah. And when it was reported to Joshua that the 5 kings had been found hiding in a cave of Makkedah, Joshua ordered, roll large stones up against the mouth of the cave and post men over it to keep guard over them.
Well, luckily they had a lot of them because they fell from the sky.
Thanks God. But as for the rest of you, don't stop. Press on the heels of your enemies and harass them from the rear. Don't let them reach their towns. So you have the 5 kings who have gone over into the hills and have found this cave, and they're sitting there, the 5 of them. I don't know what.
Men's club.
Men's club.
Drinking Shlivovitz.
Awesome.
The keynote, like our cabinet.
Right. Right. And what are they drinking?
Shlivovitz.
Crown Royal. Mhm. Okay, maybe it was Corona. Okay. Don't let them reach their towns, for the Lord your God has delivered them into your hands. Which is kind of, a strange sort of turn of phrase, right? So God has delivered them into your hands. Don't let them get away. Well, if God has delivered them into my hands, why do I have to fight? Why do I have to, why do I have to try so hard? Which is a little bit of the kind of double edge of, yes, God is there to help you and deliver them, but you have to do your part. This is the partnership model, right? So God's going to get you so far, but you have to take it the rest of the way.
God
When Joshua,
God delivered them to you, so now not to lose them.
right,
Don't lose
exactly.
them.
Right. God only goes halfway, which is different than what happens when God treats the Egyptians, right? Right. Well, how does God treat the Egyptians?
He takes them out.
Kills them.
Right. Right. So why the change? Why not just wipe out, why does God make Joshua and the Israelites kind of partner here? What's why? Why bother? If God can just take care of it.
Well, like any good parent, he's pulling back and saying, you've got to do your part. They're growing up. It's not going to, it's partnership, like you said.
Yeah, it's a partnership. It's not a partnership if one does all the work.
Yeah. And I think it's sort of the sweat equity model, right? So Joshua and the boys have to feel some sort of responsibility and ownership, and therefore appreciate what they're going to get at the end of the day. When Joshua and the Israelites had finished dealing them a deadly blow, they were wiped out, except for some fugitives who escaped into the fortified towns. Right, so you had a few people who escaped in, and that's fine. What are these fortified towns?
These be like sanctuary cities, or I think that comes.
Oh, I think they're about to receive the message. Watch out for the next city that's about to fall. You need to have some messengers get away.
Right. You want to have people who then spread this message, right? So while there are fugitives, right? So there are people who are like running away and escaping. You really want them. Right? You almost need them because your reputation has to precede you. The whole army returned in safety to Joshua in the camp of Makkedah. No one so much as snarled at the Israelites.
That's a first. This is snarled.
That's like a dog.
How does that what's the Hebrew?
The Hebrew word.
Well, and so we have a sort of thing that it also is basically an interesting word that also exists in Exodus chapter 11, verse 7.
Okay.
But let me see what the actual Hebrew is here. 21. V'yeshuva kol ha'am. All the people returned el hamachaneh el Yeshua to the camp and to Joshua in Makkedah, b'shalom, in peace. Lo charatz livnei Yisrael. And I guess charatz is the word. And yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with that particular word at all. So it could, we'd have to look up where else in the text charatz is used and then be able to determine what it means, right? Which is how the kind of biblical concordance works. So if you have a word that doesn't exist or only exists a few times, you can look at it in its other contexts and then determine what the word means. Unless you have a word that is a hapax legomenon, and 10 points if you know what that is, which is a word that only exists once in the biblical canon.
Oh, neat.
There are a few of those. I think it's the only technical word I remember for biblical grammar in rabbinic school.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Yeah.
No.
I'll make eggs for you. I'll make eggs for you.
Right. So right. Yeah. Hapax legomenon. So it's a technical term used only for a word that exists only once in the biblical text. But this is not one of those because we have one. If you look in Exodus 11, verse 7, let's see if we can find it.
I got it.
What does it?
No, it's
What does it say?
Bnei Yisrael lo yecheretz, which is the same word kelev. So, but not a dog shall snarl at any of the Israelites.
Right.
Exodus
Right.
11:7.
So that's how they're getting to snarl.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right? Because they're saying, okay, well, Here it's the dog. What does dogs do? What do dogs do? Dogs snarl. Cheretz must mean snarl. Because here we have no idea. There's no kelev here, right? So we have no idea what this word really means.
Right.
And so we're just going to say, okay, well, this is what it says there. So this is what we think it means.
Cool.
Which is sort of the way in which kind of, biblical grammar has been studied. That it's a fixed corpus. It's a fixed series of text. And so you only have the text that you have. And in order to determine the meaning, you go to other parts of the text. And the further away you go from the text that you're looking at, the less authoritative your answer. Right? So if you have a word that's used in Genesis, but isn't used again until Esther, right? There's a very tenuous connection between those two time periods. Right? There's a lot of history in between and a lot of language etymology that happens. Right? But Joshua to Exodus is not all that, distant. So they're comfortable making that comparison. All right, so where
are we? Verse 20.
Okay, so verse 22. Joshua now Joshua ordered, open the mouth of the cave and bring those 5 kings out of the cave to me. This was done. Those 5 kings, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Yarmut, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, were brought out to him from the cave. And the kings were brought out to Joshua. Joshua summoned all the men of Israel and ordered the army officers who had accompanied him, come forward and place your feet on the necks of these kings. Now, this is a dramatic scene, right? These kings lying on the ground, right? With and the army officers, the generals, are all standing on their necks, basically. They came forward and placed their feet on their necks, and Joshua said to them, do not be frightened or dismayed. Be firm and resolute, for this is what Adonai, Lord, is going to do to all the enemies with whom you are at war. After that, Joshua had them put to death and impaled on 5 stakes, and they remained impaled on the stakes until evening. At sunset, Joshua ordered them taken down from the poles and thrown into the cave in which they had hidden. Large stones were placed over the mouth of the cave, and they are there to this very day. Joshua is a very aggressive leader, right? He's taking no prisoners here. Now, truth is, in the ancient world, this is how you behave, right? I mean, this is the deal. This is not anomalous. This is, if you are the king and you lose, one way that you as the victor make sure that your subjugated peoples don't cause more trouble is to remove their figurehead, right? And this is a time-honored tradition, right? This is, this happens again and again, right? French Revolution, much later, but same thing. Any kind of military coup that happens that removes a figurehead leader, then that kind of has the whole system fall apart. Right? So it's a pretty typical and, truth be told, effective. Nothing is more demoralizing to a people than having your king impaled on a stick, displayed for everybody to see. Right? That's pretty impactful.
It's like Game of Thrones there.
Yeah, I mean, not unlike.
Can we
So at
assume,
that time, go ahead.
Can we assume the rest of the peoples? Okay, so the 5 kings were in the cave. The Joshua said, or the Lord said, go follow these other people, don't let them go. Can we assume they were killed, or do they follow up with that? Were they killed or were they absorbed?
No, they was killed. They
Oh.
was killed.
Mhm.
Only few of them escape. Only few
That's
of them
right. That's
escape.
right. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a few of them that escape this impact, but basically they're wiped out.
Yeah.
And truth is, if you want to capture land and you want to ensure that you don't have trouble later, history says you better wipe out the people who were there ahead of you.
That's what the Nazis did. They got rid of all the people of authority. Took
The
all-
Nazis, you don't have to go there. That's what the Americans did when they showed up to the native peoples. That's what, I mean, we don't have to point fingers to such evil. I mean, it's time-honored tradition. That this is how you deal with enemy peoples. You remove the threat, you neutralize the threat. How do you neutralize the threat? You get rid of it. Right? We can talk about it, the inhumanity of it, or the evilness of it, and all of that. But this is the ancient world. This is not 21st century, imposed morality stuff. So, at that time, Joshua captures Makkedah and put it and its king to the sword, prescribing it and every person in it, leaving none that escaped. And he treated the king of Makkedah as he had treated the king of Jericho, which means he...
Except it was just something interesting. I was watching the science station the other day, and an Israeli archaeologist, Israel Finkelstein, unearthed Jericho. And, just like a lot of Israel, where one is built on another, which is built on another, which is built on another, and they went back 11,000 years. But they also found mounds which would correspond not even close to Joshua's time. They said they had no evidence of any of the walls that were unearthed to correspond to the time of Joshua. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Right. Now, who knows what he uncovered? Who knows? A pile of stones is a pile of stones. It's incredibly difficult, and the danger, and we've said this again and again. You can pick up the Bible and go to Israel and point your finger, but it doesn't actually mean that what was Jericho in this text is Jericho, today. There's just so much that has transpired and happened and whatever that it's almost impossible to kind of make that, determination. From Makkedah, Joshua proceeds with all Israel to Libnah, and he attacks it, and the Lord delivered it and its king into the hands of Israel. They put it and all the people in it to the sword, letting none escape. And he treated its king as he had treated the king of Jericho. Sound familiar? Okay, and from Libnah, Joshua proceeded with all Israel to Lachish, and he encamped against it and attacked it. And the Lord delivered Lachish into the hands of Israel. They captured it on the second day, and they put it and all the people in it to the sword, just as they had done to Libnah. Why didn't they kill the king of Lachish?
He was dead already.
That's a true question. He's already dead.
Yeah.
We already impaled him with the 5 in the cave.
Okay. This is the mop-up
Right.
operation.
Mhm.
Correct. This is cleaning house. the king of Haran, of Gezer, marched to the help of Lachish, but Joshua defeated him and his army, letting none of them escape. What's Joshua's reputation at this point?
He's destroyer.
Mess with them.
Yeah. You do not want to go to war against these guys. Right? It's like invading Russia in winter.
Or in July.
But you know, it's Russia in winter or a land war in Asia, right? I mean, you just don't do it. So from Lachish, Joshua proceeded with all Israel to Eglon, and they camped against it, and they attacked it, and they captured it on the same day, and they put it to the sword, prescribing all the people that were there in it, as they had done to Lachish. And from Eglon, Joshua marched with all of Israel to Hebron, and they attacked it, and they wiped it out. And he let none escape, and he did the same thing, and then on and on. And Joshua and all Israel with him then turned back to Davir, and attacked it, and he captured it, and its king, and its towns, and they put them to the sword, and they killed all of them. Why are they going through this? Why do we need to, I mean, this is this litany. Why?
So that we can take over all this land and use it for ourselves and settle in these areas.
Well, why do I need the whole one after the other? Why do I need all this repeated over and over again? Why can't the text have simply said, and Joshua went through the cities of the land of Israel and destroyed them all, and whatever? Why do I need all of this specific? He showed up, he went to fight, he captured the people, he got rid of the people. Yeah. Perhaps it's just repetition. Perhaps it's the specificity that makes it even scarier. Because here we have the summary, right? Verse 40. Thus Joshua conquered the whole country, the hill country, the Negev, the Shlefa, and the slopes, with all their kings. He let none escape, but prescribed everything that breathed, as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. So Joshua is not culpable for any of this, right? Joshua is following a milchemet mitzvah, a war of commandment, right? Joshua has been ordered to do this by God. Joshua conquered them from Kadesh Barnea to Gaza, all of the land of Goshen up to Gibeon, and all of those kings and their lands were conquered by Joshua at a single stroke. For the Lord, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. Then Joshua, with all Israel, returned to the camp at Gilgal.
It's like Genesis. The day is over, done.
Right. But in reverse, right? Instead of creating, you're destroying.
Yeah.
Right? Right?
Could that be another reason Moses was not? I mean, Moses wasn't a warrior to that extent. I mean, plus with his age, he's not going to be able to do that. So did God kind of predetermine, sorry, you're not the man we need for that time?
Yeah, clearly, in order for this to happen, it had to be somebody with military skill and training, right? These are military incursions and actions. This is not the rabble. This is not the feed the people, with manna or give them water from a rock, right? This is military strategy. And it is up to Joshua, who is clearly the military leader, to do this. So, last questions?
Hey, Brad, could you email me the list of people who can snow plow in Fairview? You're muted.
Yeah, that's why I'm not there face to face, because I was meeting with people this morning. There's not a whole lot of luck so far.
Whatever
Really?
you have, could you send it?
I don't have one.
You don't even have one?
No, I actually have one guy who wants to charge me $25 a push. And I
Wow.
know he charges other people less, and I'm not going to pay that kind of money. So I'm still looking.
Wow.
Right. Can you herd the cats and have them pull the plow?
I'll get my sled dog to do it. I'll hook him up to
Uh-huh.
some kind of clearing equipment.
Maybe we'll just
Is
have
it-
this weather all winter long, and we'll be lucky.
Is it that people just don't want to do this kind of work anymore?
Well, a big part of it is that they can't staff their, nobody wants to work. So they have the plows, they have the trucks, they don't have the people to do it. And the other part of it is that gas is very expensive now, whereas the last couple of years it hasn't been so expensive. So the cost of them to do it is more, and supply chain and everything else. But our plow service, after 26 years, forgot to tell us that they were dropping us. And when I sent them an email saying, how come there's no stake at the end of my driveway? Oh yeah, we're only doing people who use us for landscaping year round. Thanks. So
Sounds familiar.
mhm.
Around here, my neighbors get their lawn mowed for $50. What was the
Mhm.
going price for a driveway?
Well,
25 doesn't.
I was paying 14 a push. Going is right now probably 18 to 20. So 25 is a lot. In fact, I know he charges somebody else 18, which is why I think he's like, well, to add people, sure, I'll add you, but I'll charge you a king's ransom at the same time. So I'm still looking.
Yeah, the problem.
I bought
The problem is-
electric. I bought electric on battery shovel, and I'm plowing my driveway with electric shovel on
Well,
battery.
I have no problem snow blowing and shoveling when I'm not going to work at 6:30 in the morning. So weekends no big deal. I gotta get to work. I can't get up at 4 in the morning to shovel myself out just so I can get to work. That's the key.
Could you look someone in Erie, because it is not very far?
They won't come out this far. Actually, I talk to people. I know people who won't go past Asbury. They won't go that far west. So I got to look to people west who might come east. But so far, still nothing.
Wow.
Mm.
Pay for the
Right.
season here, at home. We pay for the whole season, no matter how many times they have to come or don't come.
Yeah, they offered us $300 for the season. I think last year I think I only had like 11 pushes, so I don't think I only
I
paid
think
$150.
I pay $550 for the season.
Yeah, well, last
That's
season I think I only
Canadian.
had 11 pushes.
Yeah.
So 11 pushes at $14 is $154. There's no reason
But
for
it's
me to pay
better than you
$300.
doing it.
But then I'd be paying $28 a push. So you hear me? But
I don't know
anyway.
what, it depends. Some years that they only come 3 or 4 times, and other years they come 10 times.
Right.
Hey, look, in Ottawa, it was so snowing, that you couldn't actually use a plow. They had to come with these massive, it looks like it's a truck sized snowblower.
Mm-hmm.
It's the size of a single driveway, and they drive it onto your thing, and they just suck the snow out of your driveway, and they throw it onto your lawn, and then they move on. It's it's just an amazing thing to see. And then, of course, and there, once it starts snowing in November or whatever, you're there till April or May, because it doesn't melt,
Mm-hmm.
So, by April, we still had, chest deep of snow in the backyard or whatever. It was really quite amazing.
So this is a cliffhanger. I mean, the next time we don't have Torah study for 2 weeks, is that correct?
Right. So next week after, we don't have Torah study, and then we'll pick up that I guess middle that 1st of January, whatever it is.
Okay. Well, I look forward to finding out if you found someone to shovel your driveway.
I'll email everybody.
No, if you can, because I'm in Fairview also, and we've been delaying doing it. The guy who we had was $10 a pop, and I have a long driveway.
Oh, geez. So you're
That's
looking at highway
cheap.
robbery too.
Oh my
That's
God.
cheap.
That's
And it was
very-
American.
10
Oh, it's
bucks.
American.
Joel, for $10, it's not even worth him getting out of bed.
Yeah, well, Mimi's not going to let me go out and do it by hand anymore.
No.
No, it's actually the worst exercise you could do.
Hey,
It's mechanically very poor.
Yeah. So anyway,
Everybody.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. We'll see you, if not in a couple weeks, certainly, but if not
Happy
before,
New Year for everyone.
you too. Take care, everybody.
can we
And
call
Merry
you
Christmas
Rainbow
and Happy
Bright,
New Year.
Luba? We're gonna call Luba Rainbow Bright.
Yeah, it is God's promise to Noah not to destroy people.
That's right.
Beautiful.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good new year, everyone.
You too. You too.
Bye-bye.
Healthy.
Thank you.